Hello there and thanks for watching. In an earlier version of this video, I claimed that Alex O'Connor was paid by a Christian propaganda organization because he uses a link that leads to a sales page on the website of that Christian propaganda organization. Turns out I was wrong about that. Alex has contacted me and says that the link only offers buyers a discount on the book and does not lead to him receiving a commission. Alex asked me to correct that, which is what I'm doing here. So hereby I will retract my claim that Alex is being paid by a Christian propaganda organization, and I apologize for any confusion and inconvenience that I might have caused. So in this new version of the video, I changed the title and removed the bits about Alex being paid by this Christian propaganda organization. However, the rest of the video, which is 99%, still applies. Alex is still offering a platform to Christian apologists, like John Lennox. He still quietly lets them spew all kinds of stuff that I think is total nonsense. Alex still promotes the book of Christian apologist John Lennox repeatedly in his video. So Alex still does help John Lennox and this Christian propaganda organization to make money from Christian propaganda. And Alex is still making money from this video, a video in which he promotes Christian propaganda. The money just doesn't come through this specific link to the sales page of the book, so let that be clear. Despite not being paid by this specific Christian propaganda organization, Alex still voluntarily chooses to promote their Christian propaganda books. Why? One can only speculate. So, okay, Alex, you don't make money from the sales of this book, but you're still turning more and more into a Christian propaganda asset, which I think is a very sad thing for the atheist movement. Having said all of that, let's play the video.
You've written an autobiography, although you don't like the phrase autobiography, do you?
Oh, well, auto is self.
Yes.
And, you know, it's interesting. I reflected for a long time because people kept asking me, you must write your story. And that broke the dam. So I started to write my autobiography, which has just been printed, called My Story, an intellectual and spiritual biography.
That's right. It will be linked in the description. It comes out on the 16th of April, which may be in the past by the time this goes out, perhaps not. Either way, the link is down below. And
this is where we are today, ladies and gentlemen. Alex O'Connor, a man who defended the atheist position by debunking the nonsense of Christian apologists, like John Lennox for many years, is now promoting the book of Christian apologist John Lennox. Now, the book is published by an organization calling themselves SPCK. That is the Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge. So what do? Well, over the years, they've sold 30 million Bibles and other Christian propaganda books. They established Christian libraries. So if you enter a library like that, it looks as if every book confirms the existence of their God. They set up Christian schools so that young children can be indoctrinated with the idea that the Christian God exists. And they also want to make sure that if you're not going to church, Christian propaganda will still reach you through their home groups initiative. In other words, they are a Christian propaganda organization. But unfortunately, it goes way beyond this, because if you carefully read the mission and vision of SPCK, you will find out that spreading Christian propaganda is not enough for them. Have a look at this. Here at SPCK, we are passionate about turning the tide of secularization. I think I should repeat that so that this really sinks in. Here at SPCK, we are passionate about turning the tide of secularization. Wake up, people. Turning the tide of secularization means taking away your freedom not to believe in their God, not to go to their church, and not to obey the commands of their God. Secularization is what keeps extremist religious idiots from restoring laws that will burn you at the stake for denying the existence of their God. But Alex O'Connor apparently thinks it's a good idea to promote the Christian propaganda material of an organization that wants to turn the tide of secularization. I think Alex knows that this is a problem, so he's going to try to talk himself out of this situation. Listen to this.
And look, we're being very I'm being very friendly to the Christian position here, and sometimes I get criticisms from my audience that I don't push back on guests enough. And I think it depends on the nature of the conversation.
Yes.
Because I'm just interested in hearing where you're coming from.
Oh, come on, Alex. That is so naive and in fact an insult to the intellect of your audience. Lennox is a Christian apologist. We all know where he's coming from and where he's going to. No matter the arguments, the evidence, or the truth, people like Lennox will always retreat to the same position. My God exists and everything he does is right. Alex, have you ever met one Christian apologist who deviated from that scenario? And yes, you don't push back enough on Christian propaganda anymore. You just offer apologists a platform to spew their nonsense while you nod and say, yes, yes. Of course, we are highly disappointed in that. You used to be so good in debunking Christian nonsense, but maybe you need or have a mortgage now, and you think it better serves your personal needs to appease instead of confront religious bogus. And I think you've succeeded in that, because your comment section has now turned into a Christian fanboy central. Look at this. Jesus freed me from my alcoholism. Lennox is a great man. God bless him. Your debates with religious people are the reason I'm getting closer to being a Christian. God has given me life. Lennox makes me feel proud about being a Christian. What a top-class thinker with a deep understanding of God. Get Dr. James Tour on. My faith in Jesus is more solid than ever. And he goes on and on and on like that. There is only little people left in your comment section who challenge the hollow and nonsensical word games of Lennox. So to all you atheists out there, if you didn't get the memo yet, Alex O'Connor is no longer an asset. He has become a liability to the atheist movement. I suggest you no longer watch his videos, but instead watch videos of people who keep criticizing religious nonsense. Luckily, there are still many out there, like Professor Dave, Matt Dillahunty, Sir Sick, The Creaky Blinder, Simon Dan, but also smaller channels like Professor Blink, The Skeptic, Dog of All Trades, and many others. Links to their channels can be found in the description below. But let's give Alex one final chance to push back on John Lennox. Give it your best shot, Alex. I won't hold my breath.
He said, as moderator at the beginning, the thesis was the new Europe should prefer the new atheism, which when I first heard it, I thought, I'm not sure they know what they're asking, because the new Europe was created by the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was erected by atheism. And I thought that was a great gift to me, but I kept it under my hat, of course.
Hey, Alex, this would have been a great moment for you to push back on Lennox instead of just, nodding and smiling a bit. Lennox just said that atheism erected the Berlin Wall. What a totally ridiculous thing to say. All atheism is not believing that a God exists. It doesn't hurt anyone. It tells no one what to do or what not to do, contrary to Christianity. And the Berlin Wall was erected by a repressive and violent communist dictatorship that crushed all alternative forms of leadership, including religion, unions, and political parties. Associating me with erecting the Berlin Wall because I'm an atheist is a grave insult and utter nonsense. So, Alex, you could have pushed back on that, for example. But hey, trying to sell a book here, eh?
And persecutions of Christians, certainly Stalin did. Because of atheism.
Yeah.
That again is what John Gray provided a corrective to, pointing out the atheistic regimes that have been behind so much violence in the 20th century.
So, this is Alex, fully selling his soul to the devil here, if he were to exist, that is. No, atheism was not responsible for all that evil and violence. It is disgusting that people like Lennox are suggesting this, and most disturbing that Alex is just nodding and saying, yes, yes. If you were to separate the Stalin regime from atheism, what would you end up with? A still just as violent and oppressive dictatorship on the one end, and not believing in a God on the other hand. It's not the atheism that kills people because it doesn't have any doctrine that includes threats or violence in any way. Now, separate the Christianity from a violent theocratic regime. What would you end up with? Well, a possibly still violent regime, and a religion with a doctrine that does include threats of violence towards those who do not obey. Atheism doesn't have any of that. Atheism only was one aspect of the Stalin regime. That doesn't make the Stalin regime an atheist regime. At least, that is if you don't want the Nazis to be a Christian regime, because Christianity was a significant aspect of the Nazi regime. They had God with us printed on their belts, remember? Their leader repeatedly called on the Christian God during his speeches, and the Nazis founded their own Christian church. So if you insist on calling the Stalin regime an atheist regime, then the consequences are that the Nazis were a Christian regime.
In retrospect, what do you think is the main thing that the new atheists got wrong about God?
They got wrong ways to talk about these things, and they decided that aggression and mockery would be the best way to deal with it. And that was a fatal mistake, it seems to me.
Hey Alex, this also would have been a great moment to push back to Lennox, because he says that people like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris chose aggression and mockery to engage with Christianity. Really? Aggression? Like what? Threatening to drown everyone because they didn't obey, threatening to beat up slaves, stating that gay people should be put to death, burning you at the stake for not following the Christian belief. Your own Bible book and the history of your religion are paved with acts and statements of aggression against those who do not obey your God. And when Dawkins and Harris use words that you don't like, you call that aggression? And mockery, really? How's that a problem? Why can't I ridicule a stupid idea, while your entire religion is a mockery and insult to everything I've ever thought to be true, reasonable and ethical? The proponents of your religion can publicly read from a book that calls to stone some of my friends to death, and I can't ridicule that idea, and I need to carefully choose my words to criticize that? Just fuck off.
In fact, I've just brought out a couple of weeks ago a new book for young people. Science and God, do you have to choose?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry about that. Totally forgot for a moment that this is all about selling books, preferably to young people, because nothing beats religious childhood indoctrination.
Stephen Hawking that really enabled me to see what was going on, because his kind of formulation towards the end of his life was that you had to choose between science and God. And I thought that was really odd, because I could see that there was a deep connection between the rise of modern science in the 16th and 17th centuries and the biblical worldview. And I thought, this is very strange. Here's Hawking in Newton's chair, and Newton didn't make that mistake. In fact, when he wrote the Principia Mathematica, which is arguably the most famous book in the history of science, the early editions at least carried with them an invitation to thinking people, and Newton hoped it would convince thinking people that there was a deity.
Oh, come on, Alex. Give some pushback on this. This is the totally silly Christianity established modern science nonsense. So science and God go hand in hand. This is so idiotic, yet you let Lennox get away with it. In the 16th and 17th century, everyone in Europe was a Christian, because Christianity was the foundation of the state. If you practiced the wrong religion, or if you were an atheist, you could be sentenced to death. So almost no one publicly dared to present themselves as not being a Christian. In those days, every teacher, rapist, salesman, murderer and scientist was a Christian. So consequently, everything that was achieved or destroyed was done by Christians.
I've been making a lot of noise in a different context recently about how science doesn't really explain anything. I think it describes.
That's hugely important, Alex.
Yeah.
That's hugely important. And it was, I think Wittgenstein made a very profound statement about it. He said the laws of nature explain nothing, they describe.
Yes.
Oh, Alex, how can you give a Christian apologist like John Lennox such a nonsensical statement on a silver plate? At least have the decency to let Lennox come up with this instead of embarrassing yourself. Of course, science explains things. It's done with scientific theories, not with scientific laws. Scientific laws are formulas that describe relationships between variables. They can be part of scientific theories, though, but those scientific theories do the explaining part. And maybe because you philosophers, you don't have real proper scientific theories, you now think that science doesn't explain things. Well, you're both wrong. Plate tectonic theory explains how geological events happen. Evolution theory explains how populations of organisms change over time. And germ theory explains how microorganisms cause diseases. Yeah, but it doesn't explain why, would be the standard Lennox reply. That's begging the question. First proof there is a why. If you succeed in that, let me know.
You write about this too. After your Dawkins debate, you were taken quite ill in hospital, and you thought
I
might be
nearly
dying.
died.
Yeah.
And people say, well, are you grateful to God for that? I say, I am. Yes, thankful to God. He's given me an extra lease of life.
But why would you be grateful to your God for that? It doesn't make any sense. If you believe that your God is all-powerful and all-knowing, he is the one who decided long ago to give you that illness. If he hadn't done that, you wouldn't be in the hospital in the first place. It doesn't make sense to thank your God for cancelling a threat that he imposed on you himself.
And the problem of evil and divine hiddenness are kind of versions of the same problem.
It is.
Which is why does God allow bad things to happen?
It is.
And I also believe that there's at least one person who has suffered arbitrary, gratuitous suffering that could have easily been avoided had it been in accordance with the will of the sustainer of the universe. Mm-hmm.
I share that question with you. I'll be totally open. You all know the undergraduate type of argument, surely a good God, where does Lucretius' problem, it's all of that, David Hume raised it, and all the rest. And we never get anywhere.
Yes.
Ever.
We never get anywhere? Why not? The answer is staring you right in the face every time you meet an atheist. Tell him, Alex, tell him. The problem of evil can be explained perfectly by your God not existing. If your God does not exist, all evil and suffering in the world is explained instantly, and we no longer need magic or mental gymnastics to come up with some far-fetched solution. If you, as you claim, are totally open to answers, then why didn't you come up with this simple answer? Your God does not exist. That also solves the fact that there is no independently and objectively detectable evidence that proves the existence of your God. So your God not existing solves all of that in one move. Tell him, Alex.
And so I'm a mathematician, and when mathematicians have tried for a few hundred years to answer a question, they can't. They very sensibly try to change the question.
Which, in this case, is totally not needed, because there's a perfectly simple and explanatory answer to the problem of evil. You just wish to ignore it because it shatters your narrative. And that was the kind of pushback that Alex could have given to you, but he doesn't. Eventually, he does come up with some sort of pushback, if you can call it like that, but it's really weak. It's very carefully phrased softball questions, never taking a real position. You'd almost think that Alex does not want to object John Lennox.
John Lennox, the biography will be linked in the description. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh yes, of course, I almost forgot. We are promoting a book here. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.